Chapter 4. For over a half-century of marriage, Paula and I had a banter between us that was fun and helped cement the bonds of our marriage. One Father's Day, Paula and I were reminiscing about her parents. Paula's dad and I had got along very well. For the first Super Bowl in 1967, Paula's dad brought out the grill. We ordered food together and watched the game with some family and friends. Her dad was convinced that future Super Bowls would become a big semi-holiday, with food being a priority and an excuse for large party gatherings. He was so right. I said to Paula, "Your dad and I got along great. I think if we had ever broken up, he might have disowned you." I laughed to let her know I was joking. Paula didn't smile, she just nodded. "You might be right. This wasn't like Paula, she was always good for a response, Barb." I felt bad. Paula had loved her father very much. I felt bad and didn't want to hurt her feelings, so I decided to change tact. "Now your mom, she was always great with me, and was a great grandmother, but I always sensed that there was something missing, that somehow she felt you could have done better. Now," Paula looked at me with a wry smile. "So," I proceeded on, "of course your mom was an intelligent woman with good common sense, so maybe she may have had it right. Still," Paula gave me that smile, the kind you might use when talking to a mischievous 3- or 4-year-old. I pressed on. "Paula, you're getting this all wrong. When I say I think your mother thought you could have done better, you're supposed to say, 'No, my mother never thought that I could have done better than you.'" Paula continued to look at me. Then finally, "Oh, so now you ask the questions and answer them, all at the same time?" I looked at Paula. Finally she laughed. "Oh, okay," she said. Paula stood and raised her right hand, as if she was testifying in court. With her right hand raised, Paula started. "I can honestly say that my mom," suddenly Paula crossed the fingers of her upraised right hand, "never thought I could do better than you." I shook my head, stood up, and started walking out the door. I looked back with a smile. "You're going to drive me crazy someday," Paula yelled as I walked out the door. "I've already done that." I kept walking, smiling that our shtick was still going strong. Somehow when Paula fell ill, she miraculously was able to keep her sense of humor, even as the stages of PSP pressed in on her. In the later stages of her illness, and Paula was having trouble articulating words, the gleam in her eye remained. One hot day, Paula wanted to get out of the duplex we had purchased. We had purchased a ranch-style duplex that had no stairs, and Paula would be able to get from room to room more easily. On these walks, I would push Paula's wheelchair around the park and back. On cooler days, we would stop at the numerous benches, have a sip of the water bottle I always brought, and enjoy the scenery. I tried to prepare for this walk on a hot day by attaching a small umbrella to the back of Paula's wheelchair, giving her some shade, but not for me. I tried to compensate for this by putting a couple of bottles of water in the pouch that was attached to the seat of her wheelchair. I pushed Paula around the park, and we both enjoyed the view. We eventually stopped by a bench under a shady tree. I took out a bottle of water and gave Paula a small sip, anything bigger, and she would choke if the water went into her lungs. She handed back the bottle to me. Paula had a hard time speaking, but her hoarse voice gave me a command. "Drink." We continued to walk. After a while, I found another bench. I reached in and grabbed a water bottle. I guided the water to Paula's lips. I made sure she had a small sip. Afterwards, Paula guided the bottle towards me. "Drink," her hoarse voice said. We walked on, and this time I didn't wait for a shady tree. I reached in for another water bottle and started to give it to Paula. Paula put her hand up. "No," she spoke. "You drink," she said in her hoarse voice. "No, I'm good, babe. I just wanted you to drink." I spoke. Paula shook her head. She raised a trembling hand for us to walk on. We walked on, and at the entrance of the park we turned towards home and air conditioning. I stopped just as we left the park and reached back for the water bottle, took off the top, and started to put the bottle towards Paula. Paula pushed the bottle away. She pushed the bottle towards me. "You drink?" she said hoarsely. A smile came to my face. "Babe, I'm okay, but I'm worried about you. I know you're worried about me, but I'm okay." I reached for her hand. I kissed the back of it. Thanks for caring, babe. I love you. For a millisecond, a tear came to Paula's eye, and she looked like she was going to cry. Then slowly, she turned her head from side to side, shaking her head. Paula pushed the bottle back at me. In her hoarse voice, she said, "No, ... You're too damn slow." I shook my head and went around to the back of her wheelchair to push her home, to get into some air conditioning. As we walked, I laughed and spoke. "You know you're a big smart-ass." Paula's hands were resting on the armrests of her wheelchair. I leaned over to catch a big smile on Paula's face as she turned her hands and then raised both thumbs. On Saturday mornings after I got Paula dressed, I would wheel her into the kitchen. "Want to dance?" I asked her. Paula's reply would always be a big smile. I always made sure Paula had her gait belt on before we went into the kitchen. I applied the brakes so the wheelchair wouldn't move and pushed her leg brackets to the side. Then I positioned myself in front of her, put my left arm under her shoulder, and with my right hand grabbed the gait belt around her waist. Then I bent my legs and lifted. When I had her up, I lifted her again and placed her feet on the front of my foot, on my toes. Still keeping one arm under her shoulder and the other on the gait belt, I would pivot away from the wheelchair. When we were up, I looked at the Alexa machine on the kitchen counter. "Alexa, play Key Largo by Bertie Higgins." When Key Largo began to play, I rocked to the music with her and lifted my feet enough to move her feet as we danced. We would turn in a circle, and with each circle Paula's hands would climb my back to my shoulders so she would have her arms around my neck. We would move around that circle and sway to the music. We would play the same song, over and over. My eyes filled with tears. "I love you," I whispered. Paula's eyes filled, then her lips began to tremble. Then Paula, being Paula, smiled, and then her hands slid down my body, and with both hands grabbed my butt. With a hand on each cheek she squeezed. The same mischievous smile I had fallen in love with and lived with for half a century was back. "Hey," I said, "are you getting fresh? Better, better." "Believe it," was her reply. Then she turned her head and slowly put her lips to mine. The dance always ended with a kiss. With a name came fear and the need to carry on. Discover how they adjusted in Chapter 5, adjusting to a new reality.